Hello and welcome. You're tuned into the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Beyond the Darkness. I'm your host, Dave Schrader, along with me, Tim Dennis. Tim, today we've got an interesting story lined up for you. Mm-hmm. Over the years, we get a lot of parashare stories, people that send their stories into us to share their own encounters with the paranormal. And from time to time, people ask for thoughts or advice or help on what they're dealing with. Right. And I had a listener reach out to me through Twitter. Okay. Telling me that she is very disturbed by what's going on and has been going on in her life for quite a while and wanted to talk about it, wanted to kind of get this out, air it, vent it, and see if we could weigh in on some possibilities of ways that she can get help. Sure. So I thought it'd be, interesting to have her come on the show. She hasn't been featured on any television programs. Okay. She hasn't been featured on any radio programs. She hasn't been featured in a book or in print. So this is a brand new story coming out from the actual experiencer. Now, to keep her family out of the limelight on this, she wants us to just refer to her by the name Jeanine. Okay. So that's what we're going to do for this segment. So without further ado, let's get into this as we look at the haunting of Jeanine. Jeanine, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Dave. I really appreciate you having me on.
Now, you reached out. You reached out to me because you've got some experiences. Let me start off, if we could, and give you a little chance to settle in and relax. But tell me, have you always had experiences with the paranormal throughout your life?
Yes.
And how old were you when experiences really started happening?
5 years old.
Okay. And was this only happening to you, or were other family members aware of it as well?
At the time, it was only happening to me. And throughout most of my life, it has only happened to me. I don't really understand why. I think it may have to do with my epilepsy, because this is the only thing I can come up with, because I do give off, through testing they've done on me, I give off a much higher electronic magnetic field than most people. I have also been very spiritual all my life. Because of my first experience at 5, I had no choice but to accept that God existed and the other side existed. I saw both. And so, I literally, my first experience, saw both sides. I had to choose. At 5 years old, I knew.
All right. Well, tell us about that experience. What happened to you, and what got you into the position where you were able to see these things and experience them and be left with the choice to choose?
Well, we were on vacation, and at the time I did not understand. I knew that somehow I had left my body, and I was wandering, and there was a being with me, and I did not feel scared. I knew I was being led to a place near an ocean, and I was very aware that I was not asleep, that my body was somewhere else. Now, I didn't understand what was happening, but I went to this place, and I was shown this beautiful, like sandy place and these doorways, and this beautiful being. It appeared to me sort of like a woman, but she handed me a key, and I opened it, and there was upside down stairs, which I hear frequently people talk about. And I went into a room, and I was there, and then I sat there for a moment and it was an octagonal room, and there was 8 doors around the room, and I sat there, and I was very content, thinking, okay, I don't know what I'm doing here, but I'm here. I looked up, and the stairway was upside down again, so there was no way to get out. But I was like, okay, that's fine. She's out there, so I'm okay. And then I got hungry, and immediately, as soon as I thought I got hungry, these other beings came out, and I sensed they were angels, and they presented me with a fabulous meal instantaneously. It was like the most gorgeous layout I could ever imagine of anything I wanted. And then I just was content, and then as soon as I was done, it was just, they came out and took care of it. And then the angel immediately whipped me up through the back up there, and I closed it, and she handed me the key, swept over the sand, and said, "Never lose your key." And I went right back to my bed, and my body went right back to my bed, and I never forgot it. And that experience, from that point on, transformed me. I knew, and I began after that experiencing things left and right, and I just did not understand, but I accepted it and began to explore, and I knew then I was changed forever. I had to understand. And I've always been able to see these things, but I can't talk about it because in my generation and also in my community, talking about these types of things can a lot of times end up with people thinking you're crazy, or defaming your family in any way. It's not something easy to live with, even if it is enthralling or, and the other side can be just as scary. Believe me, when you get older and you understand that, paranormal being outside of the normal can be either side, demons or angels, God. When God speaks to you, it's powerful, and it can scare you way more than any demon can. So I get the blessing of having both sides of the equation. That's one thing that keeps me sane during this experience, because an attachment I have never had, and this occurred 6 years ago. That's one thing that I never did think I would experience.
All right, so now let me get this straight. You have this experience at the age of 5. When did you talk to immediate family about it?
No. I eventually did later. I shared it with a few spiritual people. I went to a priest later on in life because, and I had been taking just random pictures and things, just kind of documenting my life and writing, journaling. When I met that priest, within one time of meeting me, because I took my boyfriend 6 years ago died under horrible circumstances, likely murder, but it was never proven. And I took a picture of his grave, and there was an angel right over his grave. So I took the picture to my priest because I was like, okay, this is too much. I got to show somebody, and I have an attachment now, so I need help. So I took it to him. It took him less than 1 second to call the Archdiocese and Rome. They were all over it and trying to bless me, and we were working with them, and then publicity got out, and I had to stop, and the attachment continued.
Well, Jeanine, let me ask you something, though. How did you take a photograph of an angel at the graveside? That's amazing in itself. But how did you know that you had an attachment at that point?
This is very interesting. Because right before he passed, now I don't like to use these terms because I'm a skeptic.
Well, okay, so this is more recently,
Christian, but I'm an empath.
Okay, so Jeanine, you know what? Let me do one thing here. Let me reel you back again, actually, because we're kind of we're jumping in timelines here, and I really kind of want to stay in a linear sense. So you had this experience at the age of 5. You didn't really talk to anybody about it until you were much older. Even at the age of 5, I've got kids that are that young. They don't really seem to be able to grasp many deep, meaningful concepts like that. Why do you think it resonated so much with you, that gift that you were given, this ability to see that and experience that?
It was so moving. It called me for the rest of my life. And then I began to have more and more experiences. My brother died when I was 10. And a week before he died, an angel came to me and told me all about it. And I didn't know if it was going to happen or not. I didn't know if it was real. But exactly a week later, he passed away. And I saw the whole thing. The angels comforted me in my sleep. And they I saw exactly what happened. I was asleep. I mean, we had police and fire department all over our house trying to resuscitate him for hours and hours, and I managed to stay asleep through the whole thing, but I saw everything that happened. And when I woke up in the morning, I knew, and I went to his room and I saw he was gone, and I went to my parents, and then I realized what had happened. But I had seen everything, and I described it to him, and they said, "How did you know that?" And I was like, "Well, I saw it in my dream."
Wait a minute. So you slept through this entire tragedy. Nobody ever came to wake you up at any point to say that this took place?
No.
But in the dream, so you're kind of like watching it on a view screen, do you think? Is that the best way to describe this?
I was watching the entire event as it was occurring. I watched them try to resuscitate him. I knew he was dying. And the angel told me a week before. We don't know.
Now, when the angel told you a week before that this was going to happen, did you take that to your parents and say, an angel came to me and said my brother's going to die?
No, because I didn't really understand. What she said to me was, I need you to be prepared. You're going to lose one of your siblings. We had 3 at the time. I had 2 other brothers, and he was the youngest. And the angel said, you're going to need to be prepared. In a week, it's only going to be you and your brother. Your other brother is going to be gone. Please be prepared. But I didn't know I should tell my parents. Later on, they were furious that I didn't tell them.
Understandably,
they
right.
Were like, why didn't you? They were like, why didn't you tell us? But I was a child. I didn't understand. I didn't even believe it. I didn't know what was happening to me.
How did that impact you after the actual death occurred? Were you left with a sense of guilt and survivor's remorse because you survived this? You kind of knew it was coming, but there was nothing you could do about it?
Yes.
Did you ask the angel, that's a pretty big responsibility to put on the heap on the shoulders of a child, to come to you to tell you that your brother or one of your siblings is going to pass. I understand that they were trying to prepare you, but why?
That is an interesting concept.
Yeah.
Angels and demons remember that demons are angels that have fallen. And so they can mimic. It is possible, although I didn't sense danger and I was a child, but demons do attack children. I know that the vision I had when I was 5 was real, and it was an angel. But it is possible, now that you mention it, I had not thought of this. I don't like to think about it. Yes, but now that you...
Well, I don't necessarily mean it was... Yeah, I don't necessarily mean it was evil intention, but Tim, you've had, let me ask Tim here. Tim, you've had experiences in dream realms. I mean, this is kind of your forte with having experiences with people before they pass or right after they pass. Mm-hmm. And why do you think that this information is given to you? Why of all of your family members did you get this insight to what was going to happen or what just occurred?
Honestly, I think the reason why it occurs or why a family member comes forward to you is a combination of 2 things. And one is that you're more sensitive or more open to it. And 2, I really believe it's a connection that you have to that family member. So it could be that you're connected spiritually to that family member, and that maybe there's a little bit more of a bond in this life between you and that family member. In this case, well,
she's talking about an angel coming to her at the age of 10 and laying this heavy burden on her shoulders of, one of your siblings is going to die. Why, in your estimation, having been able to kind of get information before things actually occur, why do you think people are picked to get that information before the fact is known?
Honestly, Ed, this is going to seem strange, and you're going to think this is Jeanine, right? Am I saying
that's right?
Yes,
Jeanine.
It is Jeanine. Yes, okay. I'm actually very curious about this. I've never pondered this before.
Well, you're going to think this is really a cliche when I say this. You were given it because you were honestly ready to receive it, and you should have been ready to. You're gonna think this is blaming, and it's not. You were ready at that point to to pass on that information, even though you might feel like you weren't. At that point, you were perfectly capable, or you were perfectly ready to handle that information. Not only handle it, because if at that point you said you were perfectly peaceful enough to sleep through it, the passing of your brother, be able to watch what was going on and be able to observe, that suggests, one, the ability to have a soul old enough to be able to detach and watch an emotional event. Consider the fact that you and your brother are emotionally, I don't want to say invested, but emotionally you have this deep emotional bond. You were able to detach yourself enough emotionally to watch this happen without being able to snap out of it and get involved in the situation right then and there, correct?
I was his caretaker.
Okay. So, but you were able to, at that point in time...
Yes, I was able to watch. Yes, I was able to watch, and I wasn't afraid. Exactly.
You weren't afraid, and you were able to observe the situation at the time, in a way record it in your mind and soul, and then and then wake up for it. And what was your reaction when you woke up from it? Were you still emotionally detached, or were you in the moment?
Well, I went and immediately verified, because it was my job. I took care of him. He was autistic.
Mm-hmm.
And so he didn't communicate verbally. He communicated with me. He bonded with me, and you're correct. So, like, he only spoke one word, and that was his last day. It was hallelujah. And that was the only word he ever spoke. So, I was his caretaker. So the morning that after that happened, I woke up and I immediately went to his room, but I knew he wouldn't be there.
Okay.
And then I went into my parents' room, and I remember that their cries were so odd that it was almost disbelief. I was like, "Why are you crying?" I thought they were laughing. I couldn't believe the sounds, and I thought, my job is to comfort them. And I really felt that the angel was telling me, the impression, because when they speak, you feel it,
mm-hmm.
and you can hear them and sort of see them in your mind and visually, but they're not totally clear. It's like they're coming to you in your mind. You feel their presence, and you can see them in your mind's eye, and you know they're there. It's a very intense experience. It's like they're touching you, and they're very gentle. They speak quietly. But the sense that I got was not that my parents would believe me, even if I told them, was that I needed to comfort them afterwards.
So what the gift was to you, right? What it seems like to me then is that they brought this to you, because knowing there's nothing you could do about it, but because you were the caretaker and so close, they were kind of giving you this insight to give you the preparedness to deal with this loss when it actually occurred. And now that it's interesting too that you mentioned that your brother was autistic and couldn't communicate, this was probably their way of having him, in a sense, communicate with you, because they're giving you that information. And you know what's coming. Yeah.
Dave, you know what?
They did allow him to come to me right after he passed away and say goodbye as well.
Well, this just affirms something to me too, Jeanine, and that is, you mentioned the lack of ability to be able to communicate. Your brother needed a bridge. He needed something to be able to get him over to the other side, and someone to be able to almost explain to him or guide him to the other side, or help comfort him as he's getting over to the other side. And you were really a bridge to help get him from here to there. And in that you were you felt at the time like you were an impartial observer, and you were just sitting there observing, and you weren't. What you were the conduit to help your brother get from point A to point B.
I felt like I felt an important role in that process. And also immediately after checking his bed and knowing that he was gone, and I realized what had happened. And then I went and got in between my parents and just comforted them. And I knew that my role, because they wouldn't have believed me at the time, but my role was to help them, and also that I had to be prepared. The actual words that were said to me was, "Be prepared. You and your brother are going to be on your own for a while, and you're going to need to be prepared for this."
I think there was a deeper...
And I knew...
Right. There's a deeper meaning to the words "be prepared." You were to be prepared to help your brother cross over, to help him...
Yes.
To be there for him, to help him get from point A to point B, which you did unknowingly. You were too young to know that that's what your job was, and that's what you did. But by being able to get yourself out of body and get yourself into that realm, you helped your brother make that transition so that he didn't, this is going to sound kind of eerie and kind of creepy, become lost, so that he didn't stay here, so that you did get him to the other side. So that in a way, your soul is much older than you would care to know. And you never get, another cliche here, you're never given anything that you can't handle. And at that point, you could handle it. You just didn't know that that's what you were handling. So, were they furious that you didn't tell your parents? Sure. They probably felt you were old enough soul-wise to be able to handle this transition to help your brother get from one side to the other. Well, why didn't you go tell your parents at the same time? It should be obvious. If you can handle this huge responsibility of helping him transfer from the living to the other side, then why can't you obviously follow up with this small detail,
like giving him a heads up,
right? And
I look at this. I look at this completely differently than Tim. I don't think they gave it to you necessarily for you to have to do something with it, because they already told you this was done and set in stone. It's not like anything you could have done would have altered the outcome. The death still would have occurred. At least that's my understanding from the way you explained it. I don't think
they tried everything.
Right. I don't think that the angels would hold that or would be upset that you hadn't passed that information on. But again, I don't have that definitive answer. It just seems to me that, you can't drop that on a kid's shoulders and then expect them to know the right choice at that level of maturity. And really, again, what good would it have done but send the house into a tizzy over something that nobody had any chance to fix? When it was your brother's time, it was his time. Like you said, they had no idea why he went, and there's nothing that you can fix with that. It's not like it was a systemic problem that you could go in and alter and make different. So it's to me, I think in a lot of the ways, I think they were just because of your connection with your brother prepping you for the loss that was to come. And as you said, how to deal with it, not only for yourself, but to deal with it for your family, and giving you a sense of peace and calm by seeing it all and feeling like you were actively participating in it, watching it occur. So and that's my take on it. But again, it's just my opinion and Tim's opinion on these. You'll probably know more by searching your feelings, which resonates more with you. But it is what an impactful moment. But so at 10, obviously you, as Tim brought up, are a very old soul. You're kind of tasked with taking care of a brother that is special needs. Were you diagnosed at that time with your epileptic issues already? Had that been something that was prevalent in your life? Okay.
From birth.
So you are special needs, taking care of a special needs brother. Was your family kind of overwhelmed by the needs? Was your other brother special needs as well?
They were very overwhelmed by his autism.
Mm-hmm. Well, you said you had another brother too, right?
Oh no, he actually he was kind of like, he's the middle brother, so like he and he doesn't really believe in anything spiritual, so he just kind of moved away.
Right, but my question is, was he special needs ever, or no? Was it just you and your brother?
No. It was just me and my brother. Yeah.
Okay. And
yeah,
do you feel that it was a gift that you were given to see that and experience that with your brother? And even though your time was short with your little brother, you had some connection there, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So that was a gift. And then you got the chance to say goodbye. Now, have you ever been visited by your brother since then?
No.
So the sensation, like Tim said, you helped him cross and you said your goodbyes, and that was it. So that's fantastic. There's closure, which is good too, because, some of us spend our lives beating ourselves up and wishing we had one more, moment, but you had that moment and you had the opportunity to be that person for your brother. So that's another remarkable gift. So this was at the age of 5 and 10. I mean, that's already a lot put on somebody's shoulders. Was there other types of activity that took place after that point, or did it skip many years until you were getting into adulthood?
Oh, no. There's been so much. My goodness, I don't even know how many talk shows we could go on. I eventually, one time at about 18, I was in another state. My grandmother, I'm in Washington. My grandmother was in Oregon. And I began to have nightly visions for 3 nights. And daily vision, I couldn't get it out of my head that she had fallen down the stairs. I could see it. She was laying there and hurt, and needed help. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do, but this is so powerful. I can see it as clear as day. And, I called her, neighbor, and I said, you've got to go check on her. I don't know, but something's wrong. And they had found her. She had fallen down the stairs, broken 2 legs and her hip, and was on the verge of death, and they found her, and it had to happen 3 days exactly when I saw it. They saved her life.
Now, can you tell me, Jeanine, did any of these experiences happen shortly before or shortly after a seizure?
I have seizures almost all the time, so some stronger than others, but yes, my seizures do affect this, although I do believe that God, I'm a believer in Christ. So, of which I am a skeptic. So that was pretty hard to get there too. But when you have this many experiences, I mean, you pretty much have to choose. So, sorry, I digress.
The reason I asked about the seizures, I just wondered if, when people have seizures like you do, there's something called an aura, correct? Something that kind of gives you it gives you a sense that your seizure is about to come on. And I wonder if if these experiences throughout your life happen shortly before or after a seizure. How many seizures do you have a day?
Probably 10. But they're very minor. Every once in a while, I'll have a grand mal. I do think that they get the activity gets increasing when I have seizures, and I think that does play a big part in it, because you realize that the spiritual world is able to affect someone who, in their levels of consciousness, that are not, and we are electric. Our bodies are hydroelectric as well. So I give up a lot of electromagnetic energy. I have a good seizure, and I can shut down a microwave.
Right. Dr. Barry Taff has talked to us about this through the years on the show, that he has found that most people in cases, especially poltergeist-like cases, people he believes that have really severe paranormal activity are epileptic, and that they have they're prone to seizures. And he thinks it's that brainstorm chemistry that may be what's allowing you to do it. Not that he's saying it's a false imagery or false belief, but that brainstorm is what opens you up. We want to hear more of your stories. We want to hear more of your accounts as this progresses and what happened to you, throughout your life, and following up on your grandmother's story. But our guest is Jeanine. She is a listener and dealing with the paranormal in her own realm. She has reached out to me through social media, dealing with this and looking for some answers. Hopefully we're helping her with some of that tonight. Jeanine has had a lifetime of strange activity, and we've only scratched the surface here. Age 5, 10, and 18 now. Once your grandmother was found, after that fall down the flight of stairs, Jeanine, was she able to recoup and recover from all of that?
Absolutely, yes. They saved her in the nick of time, and that was very satisfying. I just felt very blessed that I had the opportunity to help her. That I was given that vision.
Right.
I don't try. One of the things as a believer that even if I could, make these abilities stronger and use them for my own purposes, I choose not to. I don't have to anyway, but I choose not to, because, if I just let myself, being epileptic and having all these, things, and also having a relationship with God, he just lets things go as they do. And I do feel protected, although I am in a dangerous situation at the moment now, which I did not expect.
All right. Well, let's, before we get into the danger zone that you've been in, explain to us, what kind of things have you seen from early on?
Well,
have you seen shadow figures? Have you seen full-on apparitions? What exactly have you witnessed?
Yes. Yeah, all.
Okay.
One of the things I started noticing early on, and I really don't understand this, it only happens with certain people, but it's starting to happen more and more now as I get older, but it started with my mother first. Like, I would hear what she was thinking before she said it. And so I can still do it. Like, she'll look at me and I'm like, I know. We don't even have to have a conversation. And it didn't, as a child, it wasn't because I knew her. I mean, obviously she's my mother, I know her, but I thought, it didn't really, I thought, well, okay, it's kind of odd that I can hear what she's thinking, but it's just her, so it's my mom. But then later on, things would happen, where I'd walk up to somebody else and I'd hear what they were thinking. And I'd respond to it without them saying something. And they would be like, what? And I'm like, oh gosh, and certain people that I get close to, I will automatically know everything they're thinking before they even say it. Even I can call them and I'll know everything they'll have said, they're going to say to me before they say it.
Does that affect you when you start tapping into somebody like that, when you can pick that up? Does it start to create headaches or upset stomach, any other kind of physiological effect because you're getting that instant download of information?
It can shock me enough where I'll drop something. I mean, it's startling because it's such an overwhelming spiritual experience. I can feel it too. I feel their energy immediately, and it's it's so overwhelming because it comes out of nowhere. It's I'll go to say, I'm very interested in almost every subject known to man. So, I'll go to a conference on something and I won't know anything about that subject whatsoever. But I'll think, oh, it looks interesting. And by the time I get there, I'll have known everything that guy's going to say or woman is going to say. And I'm in the conference. And I'm I'll be sitting there shocked. How did I know this? It's alarming. It happens often at church. I'll know all of what they're going to say. The whole church sermon, I'll have known it before it happens.
Well, that could save you some time. You could just walk in, get the quick download, and leave church. You don't have to sit there for the full time.
I don't even have to go anymore.
Although, Jeanine, in all fairness, I was an altar boy, and I know the entire Catholic Mass forward and backward. I don't need to go anymore either. So
no. Well, no, hey, I stopped going a long time ago. They threw me out. I became a hellion over this. Let me tell you, when you have paranormal activity going on all your life, it's very confusing, especially with epilepsy. And I will say that I got rebellious for a lot of periods of my life throughout it. And, because it does cause a lot of, I joke and jest about it because you have to. But in all reality, yes, I see shadow figures. I had one go over my head the other night and then start scratching down the walls.
Well, hold on. I want to get into what's going on with you now in a few minutes when we come back from the Theater of the Mind and our bottom of the hour break. Let's get into where we're at now. But I'm still trying to just get a handle on what's gone on in your life. Can you tell us, how old are you, Jeanine?
I'm actually, I'm going to say this, yes. I claim I'm in the 39 club, but I'm actually 47.
Okay. You're in the 39 club with some experience. That's good. So
that's what we call it, yes.
Right. So we heard about age 5, 10, and 18. Were there a few other key points in your history prior to what you're dealing with now that were just absolutely terrifying to you? And I'm not talking about what you're going through now, but at other points in your life.
I guess I'm just so used. When I was a child, yes, and all through my life, I've always been able to sense demons and angels around me. I mean, I see them. Like, I remember one time I came home from work, and usually I don't announce this in front of my parents because I don't want to freak them out. But I came home and, like, there was this thing, like, slithering up the wall. And I was like, I was just like, and it was so black, and its movement was so odd. And I was like, what the heck is that? And my parents were like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I'm looking at it crawling up the wall. And I'm like, okay, bye. You know, I'm out of there. And they scare me a lot. They try to irritate me. Oh my gosh. They do things like they dial my phones. Like, I'll watch them. Like, I can see it in my mind. They touch me, you know, like I remember the deepest, darkest one that ever touched me, and it touched my son too. I saw it run right over and touch my son because it affects other parts of my family. So, it came over to me, and I felt this. And I've heard other people talk about this, but this is the only things I've learned from my own experience. Like, I was in the kitchen and I felt this cloaked, like, skeletal-like figure, white as a ghost, behind me, and I could see it in my mind. And then I felt these nails going right down my back, and there was 3 of them, and I froze in my place, and I felt that horrible swaying motion that you get when a demon is in your presence, a strong one, like you're on a boat. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then I saw this hand, like, coming towards me in my face, like it was surrounding me. And I ran towards my son, and it followed me, and it grabbed my son, and he screamed. He couldn't see it, but it touched him, and he screamed, and I had scratches. Another time I was in the shower, water affects them. Water seems to be some kind, I don't know why this is. Like, I'm not an expert. I just know what I experienced. Water seems to be some kind of conduit, because, even in small amounts of water, like, I have experienced what seems like burning sensations, but they end up scratches and marks. And they like to mess with me. They've been doing it all my life. You know, if there's a lot of angelic activity around, they come in, and they're very I've learned a lot about them over the years. They're very, they're like a little military. You know, they have ranks. They speak in numbers and tones. I mean, I've learned so much about these throughout my life, and yeah, they scare me. You know, but I have doors open in front of me all the time, and I just close them. You know, I mean, the visions.
Do these things, the visions and all of these things that you experience, and you said your son shared this experience as well. So other people other people are witness to what's going on. It's not just crazy old Jeanine having a breakdown. Other people are seeing and experiencing these moments with you.
Absolutely. There's been times, matter of fact, just recently, I was doing a live bubble video because I love documentaries. So I bought a bunch of bubbles and I tried to create a tornado. And I'm just having fun, like, okay, I'm going to make a bubble video. You know, I want to try to get to make documentaries, and I thought it'd be cool. So I'm making this bubble video, and I actually did make a cyclone. You know, I'm interested in science. I'm a science girl. And I couldn't figure out why everybody was freaking out over my video. I'm like, hey, you guys, this is fun. Why are you freaking out? Well, they were seeing faces in the bubbles. But I'm live. I can't see it. I'm watching. I couldn't see what was going on. I was kind of paying attention to what I was doing. When I reviewed the video, there is a classic picture of what I believe to be an angel. I can't even imagine what else it would be. There's a face. I call it an unidentified facial object. But, I mean, I want this video identified. I want this one analyzed because, like, people now are freaking out about this because it's so clear. It got posted all over social media. I mean, and that was the first. And other times, like, my son was has pointed it out to me before too. Like he will, one time I didn't notice it. I didn't even pick up on it. I think I was watching TV or something and I really wasn't tuned in, and, my son is also very prophetic. Like he will prophesy things and they will come true. I don't understand.
Is he also epileptic?
Yes.
All right. Well, then you do understand. Well, then you do understand. There's obviously a tie to this. Fascinating.
And he's also godly. They've all found Christ through this. But God bless epilepsy.
There's looking at the silver lining, I guess.
I have to look at a silver lining because, I joke about when you live with the paranormal, having a sense of humor is a necessary evil.
Right.
Because otherwise you'll lose your mind. They do crazy things. Like for a while, they'll leave you alone, and they'll misplace one thing a day. They trick you. They play around. They cause angst in your home. They flank you with like communication problems. My son picked it out to me one time. He said, "Mom, there's a hand coming towards my face." And this was before he believed in anything. This is how he got saved. Or believed in Christ, however you want to look at it. He was sitting next to me and he said, "Mom, look at me. There's a hand coming near me, and it doesn't look like I can see through it, but it's definitely with intent." And he said that word very clearly, and I knew what that meant. And then I picked up on it, and I got right in front of him, and I spoke to Our Father immediately. And it tried, but it could not break the barrier in front of me as I was speaking to Our Father. It kept trying to break through it. It was fingers. And it was clear as a bell, but see-through at the same time. It was so bizarre. But it kept trying to break through, and as long as he was behind me and I kept saying the Our Father, he could not get through. I called them they at this point. That I won't say their names. I know some of them, but I won't say their names, the demons. I won't say their names. It couldn't reach us as long as I said Our Father. And as I kept saying it and saying it and saying it, eventually we had a fireplace. And eventually it gave up and it just went and it whipped up the fireplace and out the house.
Whew.
And he fell on the ground and said, "Mom, I want to believe in the Lord right now. Thank you for saving me." And at that point on, he started prophesying, and we all bonded together. And we all just started finding. I had already found the Lord, but then they're like, "Hey, we're under attack. We need help." And we're not going to choose them. They're on our side.
Well, we have to take a break, and I want to hear about what's been going on in your life now. But how many kids do you have, Jeanine?
Well, I have 5 children.
And each one of them has epilepsy?
Yes.
Tim, could you even imagine this? If one epileptic has the ability and that kind of EMF around them that might be sending things into chaotic spins, Can you imagine 6 of them under one roof?
No.
No wonder activity's amping up for you. When we come back, we want to hear more of your stories of what's going on right now. And the big question that we'll end up posing here is, for somebody that is a believer, for somebody that has found Christ, why do you feel that you're so deeply entrenched in an attack? We'll talk about that when we return. But first, it's time to go to the Darchives for this edition of Theater of the Mind.
Today's Theater of the Mind comes from Emily P., an unwanted gift. I don't know where to begin because I've always been keenly aware that I was different. I mean, yes, I'm a goofy person by nature. I'm a good storyteller and love to entertain and spread joy. But when I'm not, or wasn't being a goofball, I was growing up rough, critical, and all around weird. Long story short, I had a rockier childhood than people would like to know about. The experiences, yes, those type of experiences, began young, as did the abuse. I thought it was just an imaginative kid, then teen, then maybe just an imaginative young adult, who has now turned into an adult. I couldn't keep dismissing my experiences. Of course, I entertained my creating these happenings due to the abuse and overall horrid upbringing. But, well, I've been checked out and I've tried meds for depression and anxiety, yet still, things continue to happen. Once, when I came home from work, I was about 18 years old. No one was home. All the family was at work or school. Now, I resembled a much older Dora the Explorer, but more awkward and less explorer-y. It's early in the day, so I decide to take a shower. I do my rounds as I warm the water for my bath. Quiet as ever. Perfect to take a relaxing 20-minute soak after making coffee for a-holes all morning. To be clear, I had 3 sisters, 1 mother, and 2 cats, all living in a 2-bedroom home. This time was my precious. I stepped in, closed the big, heavy, ancient shower curtains, and begin my process. Not long after I do so, I felt something very strange start to well up inside of me. What the hell is this feeling? I know this feeling. What? Something's wrong. No, wait. I'm scared. I stopped what I was doing and turned off the water. I stood there like a wet rat covered in suds, hoping my luxury bath time was not being interrupted by one of my tribe. I listened, and for some reason, this feeling I mentioned earlier began to grow, almost paralyzing me. And then, swoosh, the shower curtain tears open, and I scream so loud and hard, my teeth vibrate. There was no one there. In terror, I fell out of the shower, grabbing my towel on the way down. This bathroom was small. No one was there. No one snuck in. The only window was above my head in the shower space and could not accommodate a person. Okay, maybe a Smeagol-sized person, but we weren't living in the Shire, so I knew in an instant I wasn't alone. I looked to the door and grabbed the handle. It was locked. I didn't lock it, nor would I. Being alone in the house with no sign of family coming home, I had hours before I would see the likes of them. I cried out, "Please, let me go!" And then the handle released. I trampled out, barely holding on to whatever I was grabbing as I was fleeing. I only had one thought in mind: grab the phone and get the hell out of this place. Go to the neighbor's house and take it from there. As I stood outside, I looked into the apartment from the neighbor's front porch, a few feet away. I knew whatever it was finally got my attention. It was like it had been trying, and it was going to be heard that very moment. And the energy that poured out of that tiny apartment was palpable. My mother calmed me down and gently reminded me to go inside before someone thinks I'm selling something that isn't for sale. I smiled uncomfortably as she stated this. "You have a light inside you, Mia. A light that attracts these things to you. To us." Wait, what? Is this where she tells me that I have a brother named Dean and we're going to have to fight some demons together? No, sadly, no. She just went on to tell me how we have a gift and we need to share it. Use it for good and never let them run you out of your home again. I wish I had time to go into the again part, but alas, that's a story for another day.
Beyond the darkness.
Hello, welcome back. This is the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Beyond the Darkness. And if you have a unique story like Jeanine's, a lifetime filled with the strange and supernatural, and you'd like to share it with us, you can always email me, dave@darknessradio.com. That's dave@darknessradio.com. You can elect to share it in one of 2 ways. If this story is big like Jeanine's and you want to share it on the air, we may make an entire episode regarding your haunting story of. Or you can always email me the story, and we'll include it on our Saturday Parashare segments. So do it either way. Send it to me at dave@darknessradio.com. If you want us to contact you and make it a bigger part of the show, include a phone number, and that'll make it easier for us to set that up. We don't do it with a lot. Honestly, I think in the 12 years we've been on the air, Tim, what have we reached out to? Maybe 5 or maybe 6 listeners that have had big stories like this to share?
Yeah, if that, yeah.
So we're always open to the idea, and if you have a story, we want to hear it. We'll do that continuing on Beyond the Darkness. Our guest this evening, Jeanine. She's asking us to leave her last name out as she wants to protect her family. Jeanine has 5 children of her own, all suffering from forms of epilepsy. Jeanine has epilepsy and has been a lifelong sufferer, or survivor, I should say, with epilepsy, and her life has been fraught with paranormal activity. Throughout her life, she has had experiences with dream realms, with creatures, with ghosts, with precognition and psychic self. And now she is what she believes under attack and in desperate need of finding answers. So she's agreed to come on the show to talk to Tim and I. We'll do our best to weigh in on some of these points and see if there's any insight we can give her. And maybe at the end of the show, even try to connect her with somebody that might be able to help further her information and get the answers done. Jeanine, this story is powerful, but 5 of you, 6 of you total with epilepsy under the one house. How is your house not just collapsed from all of that chaotic energy?
Lots of prayer.
All right.
And lots of prayer. We have family prayer meetings at night to protect our house.
Do each one of your children have paranormal experiences?
Yes.
Do they embrace it? Are they open about it? Or do they try to shun it and wish it wasn't happening to them?
At first, they were very scared. It didn't start for them, at least not to my knowledge, because when you're a child and this happens, it's something you don't really understand. So you don't really want to tell your parents, kind of like, hey, Mom, I saw something. Do you think I'm crazy? You don't want to do that. So I don't know. I'm going to now, after this, further discuss it with them. At first, they were extremely frightened. They broke down and just were like, oh my gosh, we're all under attack, help, and they were just crying, and through the strength of prayer and just understanding that as believers, we may be able to be attacked, but we cannot be possessed. And through knowledge of that and empowering ourselves in numbers, they have come to grips with it, and now we use it to in our ability with the ability to try to witness to people about the fact that it's not only, we don't need to only focus on the aspect of the paranormal being just demonic, although that is very important because it dominates our world at the moment. But there is a more powerful side, being the angelic and godly side, which eventually will win, and we know that. So yes, we are being attacked and have been severely injured. This is not a joke, and it's dangerous.
Then I have to ask, Jeanine, is somebody who's such a steadfast believer, and your family is believers.
Mm-hmm.
Why isn't there a higher level of protection for you and your family from God, from the angels? Why are they not? Or do you believe that they are, but what's getting through is what they're unable to stop?
Well, I really believe I have had a calling all of my life because of that experience at 5, which I'm glad you prefaced initially as a calling. I gained a calling at that point, I believe, from the Lord to let people know not to be blind. We cannot be blind. The world existence doesn't end once you die, and that is the most important question we should ask ourselves.
Right, and I understand that, but again, my question is, doesn't it shake your faith that God isn't keeping you and your children safe from this kind of attack?
He keeps us safe enough to where we, every time we get attacked, the Lord comes in, restores us, we're able to witness. I don't like it. I know we need help, and at this point, I think it's come to a point where the God is saying, this is enough, it's an end, and we need help. And now I believe that challenges are victories waiting to happen, and we need help. And this is an opportunity to show that he's more powerful. I think that he's allowed this to happen. I also I participated in it. I was involved with a person who was involved with the occult. So I opened the door. I'm sensitive to these things, and then I opened the door. That was my fault. That is something that my family did not want me to allow out. That's why I can't use my last name.
Okay, well then let's get to that part of the story, because that suddenly makes more sense. You know, as and Tim, I think you can agree, right? I'm always baffled by the people that are so religious and entrenched in God or a religious belief system, but yet they're still under attack. It to me is so hard to believe that would occur. Is it hard for you, Tim, or are you starting to understand it? I mean, we can buy, as you've said, the old cliche that, you know, of course, the ones are going to want most are the ones that are closest to God. It's a bigger victory for them. Yeah. But I still feel like they should have the highest priority of protection. The slackers like Dave and Tim, who maybe don't think about religion or church that often or whatever, you know, maybe we're the ones that should be getting, well, especially you, not me. I didn't mean to bring it into my world, but you can handle it, Tim. You're a stronger guy. But doesn't it unnerve you that people with strong faith and belief like this seem to be, they're not immune from these kind of attacks?
I don't know. Sometimes the ones who are stronger in faith are the ones who are tested the most. It seems to me that sometimes the ones who are oblivious to that type of activity are the ones who kind of meander through life and are unchallenged. I don't know why that is either.
Right. That just sounds unfair, doesn't it? It's like, how unjust is that?
It's very unfair. It's very unfair. But it seems to me the stronger your faith, the more you're tested. I don't know why that is either.
All right. Well, let's start now at where this new opening began. Now, you said that you were involved with somebody that had ties to the occult, and I'm guessing that is where the chink in the armor begins, Jeanine, and how this dark force started to make its way into your life. How old were you when this occurred?
I was 35.
Okay, 35.
When I got involved.
The real 35 or 35-43?
Yes, the real 35.
Okay.
The real 35 when I got involved with him.
All right.
He was not. He was involved in what I would call like not necessarily Wicca, but idolatry type activities, drug activity, and crime and things like that. Whatever a person like is on their foremost mind at all the time, like a person who's using drugs. I don't use drugs, but he was charming and wasn't at the time, and then got involved in them. And if a person becomes involved in drugs, in the Bible it actually mentions pharmakia as being witchcraft. And that definitely lowers, and he started having seizures, interestingly enough, from the drugs. And then I knew instantly when something came into him. I saw it. His whole face changed.
So was he into the occult, or was he just into drugs?
He was into drugs, and then he started getting into more and more of these really deep, bizarre videos, and he just would not leave the computer, and he was intent. I felt like he was possessed by whatever he was watching. He was watching all these horrible, graphic murders on TV and just intensely and trying to get me to watch. It was like he wanted to, it was like there was something evil in him, and he was like trying to do all these ghost investigation things in the house, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. It was like it was not him anymore. And I saw the instant it happened. He started watching all these shows, and he started doing drugs. The whole person changed within like a matter of like a couple of weeks. It was so weird. He shaved his head. He started eating like bizarre foods, stopped showering. And this went on it progressed over time, obviously. This is not, I'm giving you a short version.
Right, but this just sounds like a drug addict. What makes you believe that there was a dark attachment to him?
Because I suspected, because of his behaviors and the way that his face would contort and the things that he was watching, that something evil was getting through to him. So I got an ovulus and started trying to talk to the demon that was in him and started using whatever God's gift gave to me for my own purposes and talked, and I was trying to talk to the demon in him while he was still alive. At that point, something happened to me, and I remember it. And I was trying to think of it last night when the heck the attachment happened, but I remember now because I knew I was going to be on the show, and I kept thinking, what the heck, when did this really occur? And it was the night that I was using the ovulus, and he OD'd, and I was trying to restore him, and then when I was trying to, bring him back to life, I blacked out for some reason, and I wasn't on drugs, but I went into this completely pitch black space, I didn't exist anymore. And when I came to, he was awake, but he seemed normal, but I was never the same again. And then I started trying to I started trying to use the obvious, trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And I started going to church and started trying to get people to pray for me, because I knew that something had gone through me that at that moment. And that's when the attachment started. He died. I brought him back, and it came to me.
So you think in saving him, it actually is what opened the portal to allow this thing to attach to you then?
And because I tried to communicate with it, and I was practicing what I would consider to be, I was abusing the gifts that God gave me to try to communicate with it. And it was more, it was out of, I was being
See, that drives me crazy. That drives me crazy too. Because you're using your God-given ability to try to heal and help somebody you loved and cared about. And you were trying to get this thing and communicate with it to get it out. It wasn't like you were seeking, or back me up on this, Tim, right? There's a difference between trying to help somebody and just calling upon demons to do your bidding.
Well, now here's the question I have, and this is where we're going to be splitting hairs. At this point, Jeanine, why try to communicate with the demon instead of trying to pray over your boyfriend at the time for Jesus to come in and help him? I know that we're getting into religion.
I feel so ashamed. I was curious. I was so curious at that point, because I had been plagued for so long by paranormal activity. At that point, I actually had a possessed person in front of me, and I saved him, and I brought him back, and then I went away, and then I was like, okay, now I started doing paranormal investigations, and I had a cemetery next to my house, and I went over there, and I brought an ovulus, and I started doing all sorts of stuff that I shouldn't have, and I got, and as soon as he died a few months later in a very horrible way. I woke up exactly the moment he died. I wasn't possessed at that time, but it was like, now I want you. And it attached to me and my children immediately.
Jeanine, let me ask you this.
As soon as it left his body. Yeah.
Let me ask you this question, because something had to be said to this demon at a particular point when you knew that your boyfriend died. You obviously were in communication with this demon at this point, and you had to have said something to him, or to this demon. I won't say him, her, or it. We'll say it.
It. They don't have gender.
Okay, so you had to say something to it to make it think that it had some sort of dominion over you, or you had to have...
It knew I was curious, and I wanted to know who it was that killed my boyfriend.
Okay, but what did you say at that point to make it think that it was okay for your boyfriend to come back? Or what sort of deal was struck? Because
I was talking with it through an ovulus, and it was communicating very effectively with me. I was like, where is he? What did you do to him? Why'd you kill him? You know.
And what did it say?
It said, it clearly said, I like killing. And then it said, I have all of it recorded on I recorded everything also with another recorder too. And then it came out with this really scary one, and it said, now I want, in full sentences, now I want you so bad.
All right. So
I was like, oh my gosh.
It made its intent very clear. So at that point, in order to get your boyfriend back, it needed something in return. So obviously that had to happen. So what was the exchange? What happened?
To make I was trying. I shouldn't have done it.
What did you do?
I shouldn't have done it. I think that I was essentially trying to communicate with whatever was with him, negotiate to, like, if it would leave, let him live. I knew he was going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I was like, I don't want him to die. And so I was negotiating with it. And you can't negotiate with them. They're liars.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like it knew I was in a weakened state. I was grieving.
Mm-hmm.
I was hurt, and I was already communicating with it, so it had its access to me.
Yeah.
And so and at that point, once it attached to me and it said, I want you so bad now, I knew I had made a grave error, and I started going to the priests, and they immediately called the archdiocese. I mean, I didn't even have to, it took one phone call for approval.
Was it something where at that moment, did you think, you know what, I probably have a better chance of defeating this thing than my boyfriend did? I can take it on. Did you think that? Did that thought ever hit you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you thought, I can handle it, he couldn't, so I'll take that burden,
Yep.
I'll save him, and I'll take it on?
Yep.
Yeah. Do you feel now that
talk about?
I'm sorry. I know it's tough, but at this point now, do you still feel that way? Do you still feel like, you know what, I'm still winning this battle? I'm still on top of this battle?
Well, I do know that I am highly protected, although I have been severely injured. About 4 months ago, the activity really amped up, and I do not know why. But this thing really wants me now. As a matter of fact, other people are noticing it left and right. Like if I make video calls, they'll be like, "What's going on in your room? We see things floating around." I'm like, I don't even want to look. I have pictures. I have tons of evidence. I have EVPs. I'm too afraid to investigate my own house. 4 months ago, I bought a motorhome because I wanted to travel and do documentaries in my dream. You know, I'll investigate a rock if I can. You know, I don't care. I'm probably the most boring person on earth, you know, believe it or not. Like, I explore the worms, fungus, and mold like Ghostbusters. But, you know, the thing is that I bought this motorhome, and right afterwards, I got this premonition that it was going to kill me. And I went to my church, and I said, or I went to
that your motorhome. Wait, you had a sense that the motorhome was going to kill you?
Yeah, I took it to a mechanic to have it looked over. They were like, you know, if there's nothing wrong, it's fine. You know, it's in perfect condition. But I just knew something was going to happen a week before. Always a week before. And I was like, oh my gosh, this thing's going to kill me. I don't know why, but it's going to kill me. And I didn't know what part of it was. Something warned me that motorhome was going to kill you. So a week later, I go out there, lit up. I'm living at my parents' house. You know, we're a communal family, but I had the motorhome out front, and so I could travel and try to make documentaries. And I went out there and I lit lit all the heaters up. And I mean, this is a very, nice motorhome, and the fire was lit, nothing wrong. And I, went in the house, changed my clothes, came back out a few minutes later. Fire's still on, barely any smell of propane. Walked in, about 2 seconds later, the whole thing exploded.
All right. So here's my question to you, Jeanine, and please understand, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but what the hell is wrong with you? You've had a lifetime. You've had a lifetime of precognition. You've had a lifetime of knowing things before they happen. You get this overwhelming sense of dread and fear that this RV is going to kill you. Why would you ever mess with it again? At what point do you have enough signals?
I don't know. I know the church prayed over me, but you know what? But the thing is, I went in there, but it turned out to be a miracle because somehow I managed to only get burned on my arms. I was insured a little bit, and not enough to cover the entire cost, but I ended up getting an awesome haircut. My face didn't get burned. It ended up being, I call it the bomb haircut. It ended up being the fire department. No one can figure out how I possibly survived. And
this might have just turned into the most ludicrous interview I've ever heard in my life. Your exploding RV that the demons tried to kill you with ended up getting you the best haircut. I just so funny to hear that version.
Well, I don't look at it as funny that I exploded, believe me.
Right,
it's not fun being on fire. And to be honest with you, here's another aspect of it.
Yeah, Richard Pryor taught us that a while ago, didn't he?
True. Yeah, cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Yeah, yeah. Being on fire is definitely no fun.
Right, and I'll tell you something. When at first no one could believe that I was in a propane explosion. I mean, although it was loud enough to hear the entire neighborhood knew, but so it took the ambulance quite a while to get there. I don't know. I was in shock, but the pain was so intense that I figured I was going to die. I was like, okay, well, I'm out of here. But and I was going into shock. So I thought, well, okay. Other people burned up, and like the Christians in the early days, they burned up and they just sang. I might as well. I'm going out anyway, So I just stopped screaming, and I started singing "Amazing Grace," and surprisingly, my whole body just started to relax. And the fire department, everybody was just like, "What the heck?" And my vitals started going back to normal. I went out of shock. And I started saying the Lord's Prayer and Amazing Grace and just singing, and I sang all the way to the hospital. And let me tell you, that is excruciating. But by singing those songs and by saying those prayers, and everybody around was just like, see, these people don't understand why bad things happen to people that believe. But when people believe and they know, hey, yeah, it's okay. So life happens. That's what happens. We're on Earth. Bad things happen. But I am protected. I should have died. But
Jeanine,
I was prayed over, and now it's a witness.
I have a very interesting question for you when it comes to this premonition, especially this one, but other premonitions you've had, especially since you've had the encounter with the demon. When you talk about this premonition the week before, I can understand everything before the age of 35. Premonitions could happen because of your gift, or even it might be a message from, let's say, a guardian angel or one of your angels. Now, from the age of 35 on, I'm going to ask you this question. I want you to really think about it before you answer it. Give it a couple seconds to ruminate.
Okay. Message
from your angels, or potentially a calling card from a demon letting you know that it's coming for you.
Yeah. I feel at this point that what they are telling me is that I cannot get this attachment away from myself. Other things have happened. Everyone in my family has fallen ill now, including myself.
Okay.
Now they've got me trapped in my room with them because I know they hide out in here. They throw things around my room. They videotaped me in my sleep the other night. I know I can't hold my phone above my head while I'm sleeping and videotape me. It's an iPhone. It was connected. I could see where the cord goes. I had to look at that. I was like, what the heck? That was 2 days ago. They bang on my doors. They scare me to death. I have unreal pictures and EVPs and stuff. And at this point, I know that they are really starting to do some damage, and I do fear for my safety at this point. And I know that this is going to require a lot of people to probably get this attachment. There are many here. They don't just come in ones. There are many.
So it's legion. It's not just one. It's legion.
Right.
Okay.
They are 34 at this point that I know of. What that means is that they are flanking me to the death. That's what they want. I understand their communication codes. They've talked for a long time. And, you've heard of the whole 1111 thing and all that jazz.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a believer in numerology, which really affects me. This one you might find interesting. I don't believe in numerology. I don't believe in any of that stuff. However, I see those numbers constantly, and it drives me just about crazy. Ever since we've been talking about this radio show, they have blasted me with 1111 34, 1111 17 34, 1111 17 34. I finally figured out what they mean, because there's two top ranking demons here, and they divide into 17. So their calling card is 11, which means chaos. So that's their attack call. They divide into 2. They flank. They cause communication problems in the family. They divide up one person and isolate them. I'm now isolated in my room. They make everybody sick. They just do all. They're smart and angry. And but now I really feel, yes, that if I don't get some help, I don't know what's going to happen to me at this point.
Well, we're going to get you help.
No,
I've got a few people that we're going to put you in contact with. R.H. Davis, who I believe is out in your neck of the woods, would probably be a good handle. And our good friend Bill Bean, who helps in deliverance and has been very proficient in this. So we are at the end of the show. I just want our listeners to know, and I want you to know, that we are going to try to connect you with somebody to get you the help you need, because obviously there's something going on in your life that's very off-putting and upsetting.
I really hope that I'm not coming across as a crazy person, because I do believe in God. And I know
you are. You are. You sound completely crazy,
nuts.
But not in a bad way. But I'll be honest with you. I mean, for many people that are listening think, "Oh my God, this woman's batshit crazy." But it's in those cases. It's in those extenuating circumstances that is usually the most real. Mm-hmm. And we've talked to people that we know and trust and like that have had very real experiences like this. And it's easy to dismiss it because, nobody wants to believe this is really going on, because then that means you're vulnerable. And that if this could happen to you, it could happen to any of us. So I understand why people feel that way. We're taking it serious, what you're telling us. Although it sounds absurd and it sounds crazy, it's because we don't have the same relativity to the story. We don't have our feet planted in the same life.
They like to use cars right now for some reason. In the last 4 months, there's been 4 serious car accidents, including my motorhome explosion in my family. We've all fallen ill. It's just been now things that there's loud bangings, scratchings. I mean, it's driving our whole family crazy. I don't know.
Well, we have to take a quick break here. We'll hear more about your story and what's been going on, and I want to hear from you the most frightening examples that have taken place since this attachment came on. What's going on now, and how is it impacting and affecting your children? All right, let's get back to it. Jeanine, our guest this evening, and Jeanine, we're just kidding with you. We're not putting you down or think you're crazy much, but this is a unique situation. Now, you seem to be in pretty good spirits for a woman that is dealing with the demonic and some oppression going on. How do you keep your sense of humor about all this?
They left me alone pretty well easily. And actually, that's a good question, and I'm really glad you brought it up, because I was thinking about it before you asked. The reason why I'm able to maintain my sanity to an extent through this experience is because of the fact that I know it can't possess me. And that would be my worst fear, would be that it would be able to possess. They would be able to possess me, but they can't. Now, that I know. So in that fact, I know that I am protected, and that's how I keep in good spirits. I'm not. There are times when I get mad and yell at them.
You said that you know for a fact that you couldn't be possessed. Why are you so sure? Just to be curious.
Because this is something that, I know that I have the Spirit of Jesus and the Holy Spirit in my heart. Mm-hmm. And evil and the Holy Spirit cannot be contained in the same body at the same time. The Holy Spirit the evil would never be able to look upon the Holy Spirit and stay. The Holy Spirit would exorcise it immediately out of my body. Now, I have felt a demon go through me at one point, and that was the most terrifying thing, because I said something so foul when it went through me that it wasn't me, and I knew it. Mm-hmm. And it was one of the most scariest things. I said something I will never repeat. I can't even believe I said it. It wasn't even me, and it wasn't my voice. It's the only time I've ever felt anything go through me like that. But I know I cannot be possessed. That is a good security for me. But I do feel like I can be injured, and I have been, and my family has been. And but we can turn this into something good. They drive me crazy at times. They'll move my stuff, and the poltergeist activity. You want to talk about the scariest stuff?
Yes, let's get to some of the scariest stuff.
Yeah. The poltergeist activity, although it's interesting you mentioned about, I've wondered if because of my epilepsy, if sometimes maybe I might have some kind of kinetic potential, but at the same time, things will go flying across my room, and I'm like, I'm so used to it now. I'm like, that kind of stuff I get used to, but when they start slamming doors over and over and over and over, and it's very loud, that's when you're like, okay, I'm not messing with you anymore, because if you can do that, I'm out of here. When they start breaking the laws of the laws of physics and breaking through that, and they're able to actually touch me, or like a scary was, and I tried to blame it off on my epilepsy because I was totally afraid, but I knew it wasn't. I don't know which one it was or how many, but I was laying in bed, and I'm a chronic insomniac, but they grabbed my feet, and they were trying to grab me off the bed. And they were like jiggle. They were just pounding them back and forth, trying to drag me off the bed. I'm holding on for dear life, just like, you're not getting me off this bed. And I was terrified, and I kept thinking, you're just having a seizure. You're just having a seizure. It's not really happening, And once they get me afraid, I'm vulnerable. They know it. As long as I hold my stand and not be afraid, they can't. It's harder for them to get to me. If I ignore them, then it's hard for them. But once they scare me, I'm through. And so, I'm sitting there like, it's just epilepsy. I'm just having a seizure. But they're just smashing my legs and trying to pull me off the bed. And eventually it was almost like being on Wizard of Oz. Like, I wish I can. It's not happening, and eventually they stopped. But that was terrifying. And I'll never forget that. Also, one time I'm like, it sounds scary, like it's being afraid of something under your bed, but really, they do things. They're smart, so they like to scare people. They like to induce fear to make you vulnerable, and then they can really get in. So one night I was laying in bed, and it grabbed my arm, or they grabbed my arm, and they were wrestling with me. And I'm like, I'm thinking, oh my God, it's got my arm. And, I don't know what to do. And I'm just fighting. I'm like, if it gets me off this bed, I don't know what's going to happen to me. And, at that point, I was too paralyzed to pray. And that's what they want. I'm like, at that point, it's me against them, not, and I was like, oh God, help me. I didn't know what to do. If you can hear the anxiety building from that experience, I mean, like when you have something physically around your wrist, like a person grabbing you and trying to physically pull you off your bed, and you have to fight it with physical strength, that is a terrifying experience. And then to have it them smashing on my doors and throwing stuff in my room, and they go wherever I go. That's why I know it's an attachment, not the house. I go to work, I'm walking through work, things are falling off shelves behind me, people are noticing. They're like, what the heck? A matter of fact, my boss came to me, he's like, why do you throw food? I'm like, I'm not doing it. And like, I always know there's someone behind me.
Are you open with your friends and your boss about the kind of stuff that's going on in your life, your experiences? Very few. Some people know, and now people are starting to notice. So yes, it's becoming so obvious and more active. They are increasing. They're up there. They're ramping up the battle at this point, because I finally, about a few months ago, reached out to you and others for assistance to try to get anonymity help. And once they realize that, they've been really after me ever since. This is a battle to the end now. And so now, I mean, even a couple days ago, and this doesn't happen just at night. During the day, I was sitting there, and I'm just on my bed. I'm sick, and they've got me in the room now. And I realized they've got me locked in here because I have this weird flu or something. So I'm sitting on my bed, and it's within like 6 feet of me during the middle of the day, and they're just bam, bam, bam on my door, on my closet door. I mean, you can't ignore that. There's nobody in there. It's too small. I mean, you can't, there's debunking that. I mean, it's not an animal. I don't have animals in my room, I mean, and the other, so that scared the heck out of me. That's when I back up against I can't move. I get paralyzed. I back up against my bed, my wall, and I'm like, just get away from me, and I'll swear at it at that point. I heard that guy on the other night saying something about, like, you get mad and start cussing, I mean, eventually you get so frightened, you're just like, just get away from me, I mean, it just gets so terrifying at points. You lose your cool, basically. Understandable.
And once I lose my cool, yeah, I mean, if you've got something throwing things at you, and I have a rosary right now that I keep around my computer at all times, because I know they like electronic devices. Electricity, they have an affinity for. And if I watch anything that has paranormal activity on it, but I just keep it now on the rosary on my computer at all times. I don't want anything going through that thing to my house. I am protecting myself at all points at this point. I don't care what I have to do, because I know that they know I'm exposing them. They're very brazen about it. They like to claim their kills. As soon as they killed my boyfriend, they sent me messages all over my phone that I didn't type saying I killed him. I have them. I have them on my phone still. I showed it to the priest. Not only that, his daughter died 6 months later mysteriously of cancer in my arms. And I mean, this has been going on ever since he died. I mean, and now I have 3 more friends dying of cancer at like 27 years old.
That might say something more about where you live than the demonic, but
actually, but I mean, it was everyone that's ever come in contact with this circle is getting cancer.
Well, shit, couldn't you have told us that before we did the interview?
Yeah, thanks, Jeanine.
Sorry, no, you guys, I prayed for you guys massively before the interview. Trust me, I pray for everyone I talk to. I'm sorry. No, we're all recovering.
All right. Well, we're going to try to put you in touch with R.H. Davis and with Bill Bean to see if they can give you some help and some insight on how to deal with this. And Jeanine, will you keep in touch with us and let us know how life is progressing for you?
Yes, and let me know that you don't catch cancer. Or no more.
Listen to her laugh. Tim, that was one of the most evil laughs ever. First of all, I'm staying away from RVs now.
Yeah.
And I'm not even Catholic. I'm going to go do a couple Hail Marys.
I'm going to gargle with holy water after this deal.
Yeah. Jeanine, we're going to get you help because somebody needs to. Thank you for being a part of the show this evening. And like I said, we'll keep in touch and hear what's going on. Yes. That's it for this week's adventure into the strange and supernatural with the haunting of Jeanine. Yeah. I'm your host, Dave Schrader, along with me, Tim Dennis. You've been listening to the best in paranormal talk radio. Make sure you join me for the rest of the week on Midnight in the Desert as we continue talking about anomalous phenomena. You can check it out at midnightinthedesert.com. For Tim Dennis, I'm Dave Schrader. This is Beyond the Darkness.